Are you ready for Freddy? If you're familiar with that phrase, then you know exactly what you're in for. For those unfamiliar with the series, all three of you, this is a series of games where you play from a first-person perspective, controlling security cameras and other devices from a fixed position as you attempt to survive 5 nights by avoiding murderous animatronics. Developed by a guy named Scott Cawthon, it has created a large and loyal fan base in the short time it's been on the gaming scene. Now, the first game in this series was incredibly good fun and came out of nowhere, shocking people with its deceptively deep lore and memorable art style. Shortly after that, a sequel was released, which felt a bit rushed, but extended the story further, serving as a prequel to the original game, and also adding some new gameplay mechanics to keep it from feeling too samey. Now we finally got the third game, Five Nights at Freddy's 3, released on Steam a mere 8 months after the first game. Yeah, 8 months isn't that long for 3 games to be developed and released. So you're probably wondering whether or not Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is worth checking out. Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let's just find out, shall we? So Five Nights at Freddy's 3 mixes things up a bit. Instead of having you play as a security guard in the Freddy Fazbear pizzeria, you're now in the control room of Fazbear's Fright, which is a horror attraction at an amusement park based off the events from the first 2 games. The premise now is that you've got to survive 5 nights testing out the attraction to make sure it's functioning properly for the grand opening or something like that. You need to monitor security cameras, vents, and also an audio system, which need to be rebooted when they go out of order. It's really just another way of setting up the same formula, however, where you're staring at that clock waiting for 6 AM to carry over so you can get to the next night. The catch here, however, is that there's only one robot named Springtrap that you need to worry about this time. The rest are just hallucinations, which only scare the living crap out of you, forcing you to restart the ventilation system to regain your sanity or some shit. But Springtrap is really the only one worth worrying about because he's the only one that can end the game. You have to see where he is on the cameras and lure him away from the control room by playing audio noises in particular rooms or by sealing him in the vents. If you see him outside the control room, you're usually already dead. So once again, it becomes all about micromanaging all of these different elements, hoping the game throws things in your favor and lets you make it to the next night. Often it doesn't, and you're treated to a loud, distorted jump scare that will make your neighbors concerned for your welfare. This is a hard game, but it's hard because it does a really terrible job of telling you what the hell you're supposed to be doing. The first night is a tutorial where it's briefly mentioned how the security systems work, but as far as to how they're actually supposed to be used, you're given very little instructions. You're supposed to monitor the vents and keep certain vents locked off if you see the animatronic inside. You're supposed to play audio through certain cameras to get it to go to certain areas away from the control room, but half the time it doesn't do anything. Often I've played noises a mere room away and Springtrap still just stands there like an asshole. You can go from having him be nowhere near the control room to suddenly turning around and there he is right in front of you. It makes no sense. In the first game, it was simple. You just watch the left and right door and keep your eye on Foxy the pirate. The second game was simple too. Wind up the jack-in-the-box, keep an eye on the vents, and flash the hallway with your torch. But the third game just feels confusing. It's not as seamless. Again, like the prior games, everything is totally randomized, so one night you might get an onslaught of animatronics within the first couple hours, but then you'll have times when you'll make it to 3 AM and you won't see a single robot. Whether or not you should play this game is something that's out of my hands. I think most people know whether or not they're into this series by now, and it's definitely a love it or hate it type of experience. There's going to be the typical brain-dead fuckwits playing this game with a face cam and acting like man-children, but that comes with the territory. Personally, I always have fun playing these games with a friend because they're really nothing more than pieces of fluff where you can just both sit around the same monitor screaming like little girls every time something happens. Now, there is a lot of entertainment to be gotten out of it like that. There's a bit more backstory revealed once again, and there's also those little mini-games in between levels. And of course, the atmosphere is still terrifying. I'm also still a little bit annoyed that there's no proper options menu yet or a traditional save file system, and I'm also still annoyed that I still have to put up with screen tearing, but I mean, it is what it is. The real takeaway for this isn't are you ready for Freddy, it's more do you still give a shit about Freddy? If you can answer that question positively, then check it out, otherwise give this one a miss.